Hello. So in this video, I was going to talk about basically PlayStation and Xbox here going forward in the next generation of consoles, and some big news hit today, and some really bad news for Xbox. So Halo 5 or Halo Infinite, excuse me, just got delayed. Now this could be good news in the sense that the game did not look good. There have been a lot of criticism going around through the internet for a while about this last like several weeks or so. Memes being made too on it, and just did not look good. I know graphics aren't everything, but graphically, this looked like more like a PS3, Xbox 360 gen, and for being two generations later that we're going on here, that's pretty bad. And I think a lot of it is the fact that they're trying to basically Xbox is make games that can play on all the different like Xbox One iterations as well as now the Series X. And so because of that, since they're not building it for like the ground up, and they're not building games from the ground up for a while, that's going to hold the Xbox Series X back, I think, in terms of what you can see visual wise with their games. But just big news. Like now, the reason I say it's kind of good is that like I said, you had a lot of people complaining about it, and like Nintendo has said before, basically that a bad game is always a bad game or something, but a delayed game isn't, or whatever. I forget the exact phrase, but basically just saying that if a game gets rushed and isn't good, it's not good. Where you'd rather take your time, get things right, and release a good, finished, quality, well-made product. But at the same time, the problem with this for Microsoft is that when you look at the Xbox brand, they've basically, since they've been around outside of the 360 generation, have been dominated by Sony. And I actually think the only reason that the 360 generation was even close in sales was a lot of the mistakes Sony made. Sony, that was a generation, even though I personally like PS3, where I can see a lot of their faults and mistakes that gen. And it hurt. They had a high price tag at the beginning, Sony did. You had a system that came out a year later than the Xbox 360, and multi-platforms did not perform well for the first like 2 years because of the cell chip and how it was hard to develop for. And yet Sony still slightly outsold Microsoft, and that's not a good sign. And then when you look at what Xbox did this generation, they've always kind of struggled with exclusive games, honestly, as far as I'm concerned, even back in the 360 gen. But it's gotten even worse. I can't recall really the last time that a Microsoft AAA game outside of Forza racing game, Gears of War, and Halo has gotten a good review. It's been a long time since I can really remember a AAA game outside of those three franchises getting good reception. Where Sony, on the other hand, is always coming out with new IPs, new games that get pretty good reception. Some great, some good, but very rarely do they get like bad reception from the general public and from review sites and everything. And the problem with this is that Microsoft's already fighting an uphill battle, and now your biggest game for the Series X is not going to be out at launch, which really just makes the Series X even more like pointless to pick up. And they were already fighting an uphill battle because, like I said, the fact that Sony's done so well and the lack of exclusives on Xbox and just the name brand recognition that Sony has with their consoles. And I also feel like when you look at Sony's launch lineup, I feel like the launch lineup, or even though we don't know the exact games, just based off of what we have seen and heard, as well as the fact that PlayStation UK, I believe it was, magazine came out with a list of games and kind of when they're supposed to come out, or kind of the windows of when they're supposed to come out, if you will. And I think that Sony actually has what's going to be a much better, first or launch plus, first 6 months or so or whatever than you typically see from launch consoles. I see some people saying that both launch lineups are weak, but I beg to differ. The PlayStation lineup is looking really good early on, and you still have heavy hitters coming later. And with the Xbox Series X now, they don't have much, as well as the fact they've already said that for the first 2 years, no games are really going to be Xbox X or Series X exclusives, which means they're being held back by the past consoles. And also because of that, it's kind of like, well, if you can play Halo, or say Gear 6 comes out, or Forza, whatever, or they come out with even like a good new IP within that time period, if you can play it on the Xbox One, then why upgrade? I know things might look a little better graphically and all that, but people buy new game or new systems for new games. You're not gonna have people, even though people want backwards compatibility, it's not gonna be like the reason that you jump and get a new console. You get a new console for the new games. And when you look at Xbox's lineup, they're very weak right now. And like I said, I think PlayStation is in a position to have a better launch lineup than you typically see, or at least the first few months. The reason I say that is when you look, for example, at the official PlayStation Magazine UK issue 178, and kind of the list of games they have. You have Astro's Bots Playroom, which was shown. It's kind of a game that's built to show off the features on the PlayStation 5 controller. And from what they've shown, it looks like it's actually a full game. It's not just simply like a tech demo, even though it does show off like the features, and it looks really good. I didn't play the Astros VR game, but I also heard that game was pretty good for PlayStation 4. And so I think that's going to be a good launch game, even if it's not exactly AAA per se. Then you have something like Gran Turismo 7 that should be launched, or at least close to it. You have Kenya Bridge of Spirits, which is a independent developer, but looks, I think, absolutely fantastic. You have the Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales game. That game is a system seller. I know it is a smaller game than the first Spider-Man game, being that it's like a spin-off game, kind of side game, rather than Spider-Man 2, but it's still Spider-Man, and Spider-Man's so popular, but even being like a shorter game, I expect the game will be around a 10-hour main story, considering the first game was about 20-hour. I think it'll be about half and be about a $40 game, similar to Lost Legacy, Uncharted Lost Legacy was on PS4. A shorter game, a little bit cheaper, but still well made and good. And like I said, Spider-Man, even with it being a shorter game, that's still a system seller. Then you have, a game like Ratchet and Clank. Right now, they currently have it listed in the PlayStation Magazine between February and June of next year. I definitely think that will happen. Originally, I would have thought Ratchet and Clank was going to be a launch game, but that was before Miles Morales, before we found that out a few months ago. And so I don't think that they're going to launch both of them, being that they're both Insomniac games. I think we'll get Spider-Man at launch, like they pretty much have confirmed. And I think Ratchet and Clank will be a early 2021 game, so I can definitely see it falling in that February to June window, with it likely being, I think, closer to February than to June. I could definitely see it being like a March type of game. But yeah, if you get that, then you're talking about within just the first few months, you could potentially have a Spider-Man Miles Morales game, a Gran Turismo 7, a Ratchet and Clank, a Astro's Playroom, Kenya Bridge of Spirits. That's already several really good, solid games. That doesn't even include AAA, or that doesn't even include third-party games that are coming at some point. And then you even have, and then if you look too at that list, you also have July 2021 or later, Horizon Forbidden West. Now, Horizon Forbidden West, I believe, will be a late 2021 game. So I think it makes sense to say June or later, or July or later, or whatever. But yeah, I think that will come out. But basically, my point is, you're most likely going to have in the first, full year-ish. So you're talking about, late up to late 2021. You're likely going to have Ratchet and Clank, a Miles Morales game, a Horizon Zero Dawn, although that could maybe get pushed back to early 2021. Gran Turismo 7. So I honestly think you're going to have already like 2 or 3 system seller level games in the first year, as well as some other good games. You look at Xbox on the other side, basically everything that is going to be on that console is either going to be something you can play on the Xbox One, or it's going to be a multi-platform game that you can just play on PlayStation 3. And I know there are some people that will buy consoles and maybe will go with Xbox because they want multi-platform games to play like and look at like the best because of the fact that Xbox is more powerful. But when you look at multi-platform games, even with Xbox being more powerful, multi-platform games, you're never going to see a huge difference between one console and the other in terms of performance, just because of the fact that it's not being made for the ground up for that particular system. So the difference between a game that's on PlayStation 5 and it's also on Xbox and same game type of thing, it's not going to be a huge difference. You could see something perhaps like maybe some games on PlayStation 5 or 1800p, and maybe the same game on Xbox is 4K or something like that. Because I do think we'll still see some games that aren't 100% 4K. I think next gen, I think most games will be, but there might be some that aren't, or that have dynamic resolution, meaning they drop at times. They aren't always at 4K, and it might be at times, and other times drop a little bit. And on the Xbox Series X, you might not have that. The other problem with Xbox too is that their naming, I think, has gotten just completely absurd. People talk about the Wii and the Wii U and Nintendo, and how a lot of people thought that the Wii U was basically just an expansion, like controller type of thing for the Wii. But I think Xbox with their naming has gotten even worse and even more confusing. And I think that's going to hurt sales too, because you're going to have, I think, a lot of people who do want to get the Xbox Series X, and maybe are asking their parents for that for Christmas or whatever, and their parents are going to be confused and maybe end up buying them the wrong one or something. So I think that's going to be a big issue too. So you have lack of games at launch, and really for the first couple of years, all they're going to have, like I said, is third-party games. And I don't think that people are going to buy an Xbox Series X over a PlayStation 5 just because third-party games might look a hair better. That just doesn't really make sense. So yeah, it's interesting with Xbox here. They don't have a lot going for them. I honestly think they're going to get destroyed even worse next gen. This generation, if you look at the sales currently, PlayStation has sold about 112 million, I believe it was. Xbox, I think, is around 45. I honestly think that Xbox has made a lot of people frustrated this gen, to the point where I think a lot of people that even did buy Xbox One are going to navigate to either not buying an Xbox or any console at all, or they're just going to go straight to PlayStation 5 instead. So I honestly think we're going to see something like PlayStation 5 with like 130 million or something next gen consoles sold by the time things are done, and Xbox at like 30 million or something. I honestly think Sony doesn't have any competition when it comes to Xbox anymore. I think Sony's competition is Nintendo, I think. Yeah, Nintendo's different, but at the end of the day, Nintendo makes good games, unlike Microsoft and like Sony. And that's why people get consoles. It's for the games. And so, yeah, I just think that Nintendo is the biggest competition really for Sony, not Microsoft. You've seen how the Wii is doing, or the Switch is doing. It's selling great, and it'll be interesting to see does its sell numbers fall off. We don't know if there's any big games right now for Nintendo that are going to be out in November and December. Right now, the closest thing we know is Pikmin 3 port, basically. That's late October, right around Halloween time. But if we don't have a big game for Sony for Nintendo, by in November or December, I think that the sales will fall off quite a bit with PlayStation 5 coming out. But even if they do, at the same time, I still think there's a lot left for the Switch when it comes to sales, because of the fact that, for one, they still got Breath of the Wild 2, and I think when Breath of the Wild 2 comes out, if it's not, say, this year, which it very well might not be, whenever it does come out, even if the sales have fallen off a lot by then, I think that's going to be a game that's going to boost sales up again and probably boost them up for a while. And then we don't know if, at some point, if we might get another Mario Kart or something. Mario Kart's an interesting one. It's selling well still, Mario Kart 8 that is. But and so people are like, maybe they won't do a 9 because of that. But at the same time, if Nintendo sales fall off enough, maybe they will do a Mario Kart 9. It's just a way to try to get people to keep buying the Switch, even if it's not, even if Mario Kart 8 itself is doing well. Maybe it's just a way to get people to continue to buy the console, kind of thing. But yeah, that's basically my thoughts. Is I'm just wondering what Xbox is going to do now. Do they have any secrets that they're holding back that we don't know about? But I doubt it, just off of Xbox's history. But yeah, it's just not looking good, because the problem is, not only do you have Microsoft with, like I said, not multiple times not having much at launch, but when you look at Sony and Microsoft has also had basically two dedicated showings to the next gen when it comes to actually showing games. PlayStation has had one. And even though Microsoft's had two, PlayStation's had one, I would say Microsoft has shown a lot less quality, despite the fact they've shown more, which is not good, because that makes me think that not only is their lineup not looking nearly as impressive, but also considering Sony had one less show dedicated to PlayStation 5 games, I also think that means that PlayStation has a lot more left to show. So you have a console and a company that has a lot more to show, I think, than the other, and yet even with having a lot more to show, meaning a lot more stuff that hasn't, it's been, secret still, that they've still been more impressive, and that's not a good sign either. Because I could very well see Sony having maybe some secret launch game that we don't know about, such as there's been some speculation about Resistance remake. I'm personally not into that. I'm just not big into first-person shooters, even though I do love Insomniac Games. But I think that would be something that would help. There's also been rumors about Guerrilla Games, who made Killzone and now Horizon Zero Dawn, maybe having another Killzone game, or not a Killzone game, but I forget what it's called, but another shooting game, basically, is they have a couple of studios, and maybe one of them could be working on that other one, or on that shooting game, and they may have that be a launch game. Which, if it is, that's just another thing, because that would be big for Sony to have a launch game ready that's a shooter. With how big shooters are. Because even though I personally don't care for shooters, they are popular. There's no denying that. And so yeah, and then I could even see Sony maybe have showing God of War 2, even though I don't think it's coming out anytime soon, but they could still show a trailer for it, even if it is not going to be ready till early 2022 or something like that. So I think you could have that. You could still have Silent Hill. There's been a lot of rumors too about third-party exclusives, or not exclusives, but third-party time exclusives for PlayStation. Not sure on that, but it just sounds like there could be some big ones, and I almost wonder if the next Batman game could actually surprise people and have like a 1-year time exclusive on PlayStation. And if they did, that would also be huge. Been rumors about Grand Theft Auto 6 maybe again, something like that, but I don't know if that would happen. It just seems like Grand Theft Auto is a game that sells too much because of the multi-platform thing, in part. And I don't know if they'd want to, be missing out on the other console sales for a full year or 2 years or whatever it is. But yeah, that's basically my thoughts. I'm going to make another video after this. Basically, I have another interesting topic I want to talk about. But if you've enjoyed this video, as always, subscribe below, and I'll see you later.